What if we compare the top 10 from the 2024 Mr. Olympia to the top 10 from a decade ago, from the 2014 Mr. Olympia? In this video, we're going to compare the winners of these Mr. Olympias against each other, the runners-up against each other, and so on, until we compare the entire top 10 against each other, and the year with more wins will be declared the winner. How about that for a video idea? Make sure to get this video to 700 likes to see 2024 versus 2004 next. We're going to start the comparison from the bottom up, and in 10th place we have Juan Morel from 2014 against Akim Williams from 2024. We're only going to look at one pose for each angle, meaning one front pose, one side pose, and one back pose, to get an idea of who is the more well-rounded bodybuilder. If we were to look at all 8 mandatories for 10 different matchups, it would literally be too much for a single video. So Juan Morel versus Akim Williams in 10th. In the front double biceps, I'm looking at their overall flow and proportions, where Akim Williams has the advantage between these two. From all angles, I'm going to be looking at conditioning as well. From the side, I'm looking for conditioning again, and overall muscularity and thickness, as this pose reflects this very well. Again, I believe Akim wins as he's thicker and more well-rounded overall. From the back, we are going to especially be looking at the dryness through the glutes and hams, which remains the best way to figure out overall conditioning, and of course the overall back development, lower body and arms, the back double being one of the poses that showcases the most muscle groups. Conditioning wise, they look pretty much the same. Not in excellent conditioning, and as far as the pose goes, Juan Morel obviously wins. If we were to analyze all poses, we would have a more exact idea, but seeing the side by side from all angles in some of the most telling poses, I would say the 2024 Mr. Olympia 10th place finisher, Akim Williams, is better, so he scores the first point for Team 2024. Steve Kuclo from 2014 and Brandon Curry from 2024 are the 9th place finishers at their respective Olympias. Brandon's physique definitely looks more worn out here, but I believe he wins the upper body. As usual, the lower body holds him down. From the side, Steve looks drier, but Brandon is thicker overall and has a better execution. From the back, as far as the actual backs are concerned, I'm impressed with Steve. He holds his own against Brandon, who's known for having a great back. However, the lower body is a knockout for Brandon. The overall muscularity and definition have always been a problem for him, and Steve looks more than decent and also much drier if we're looking at those glute striations. I believe that overall Steve Kuclo would win this one, so the score becomes 1-1. In 8th place, we have Victor Martinez from 2014 and Rafael Brandao from 2024. Victor was an elite bodybuilder in his prime, but 2014 was far from his prime years. He may win the biceps here, but his upper body-lower body imbalance, as well as the overall conditioning, makes him lose against a much fresher-looking Rafael. From the side, Victor looks strong, but so does Rafael, and based on the lower body, Rafael is in much better conditioning. The back double biceps as a pose could probably go to Victor. His back was always a strong point for him, but I still think he has that firmness of water through his lower body that probably held him back at the 2014 Olympia, finishing only 8th. I believe that Rafael is more well-rounded from what we've seen. His muscles are fresher and his conditioning is superior, so he scores another point for Team 2024. In 7th place, we have Big Ramy versus William Bonac. We've seen these two going against each other in their prime, which happened during this past decade, with both of them scoring victories against each other. So here we have a young Ramy against a William late in his career. William looks sharper, but the front double goes to Ramy. He's more massive and more aesthetic at the same time. From the side, Big Ramy is pretty much invincible when he's on. He was not in great shape here, but it's enough to beat William for me. From the back, the difference in conditioning is most notable, and if William was a bit fresher, he would probably win this on stage, as he's done it several times against Ramy when Ramy didn't bring the conditioning. But at this point, William's body is too worn out and Ramy looks nice and fresh. Even his back looks complete, his arms, everything. Indeed, the conditioning might be a factor, but I would still go with Ramy here, so the score becomes 2-2. In 6th place, we have Branch Warren from 2014 versus Hunter Labrada from 2024. This is an interesting matchup. Hunter definitely has the better flow, but it's not like Branch has ever contended on that. But the front double would go to Hunter indeed. Branch was thick, hard and incredibly vascular, as we can see in the side chest. However, here in 2014 he wasn't at his best conditioning wise, and he truly needs that hardness to compensate for his overall flow. From the back he indeed looks to be harder and drier than Hunter if we are looking at the lower body, and he has a pretty comparable back too. And we have to admire their calves here, the best for each respective year. Anyway, this was a pretty even matchup, and I believe that Branch at his best, like in 2009, would defeat Hunter at his best, but for their looks here, I would go with Hunter for the win. So 3-2 for 2024. In 5th place, we have a very interesting one, Dexter Jackson and Andrew Jack. Neither of them was at his best here. As far as the overall flow, both are aesthetic, but Andrew is way taller, which would be an advantage. Dexter is the blade, but here I can't see his trademark conditioning, to be honest. From the side, Dexter is superior as he has rounder and fuller muscles proportionally to his dimensions, and also a better execution. From the back, Andrew usually suffers even when he's in shape, but at the 2024 Mr. Olympia, where his conditioning was not okay, his lower body really holds him down. Even though Dex is not at his best, he's more complete and more conditioned than Andrew, and I believe he would beat him on stage with these physiques. Now, comparing Andrew from Texas to 2008 or 2009, Dexter would be really interesting, but for today's video, I would give Dexter the nod, so 3-3 becomes the score. In 4th place, we have an awesome matchup, Dennis Wolf versus Martin Fitzwater. We can really notice that we're climbing in places as the conditioning and the physiques become better and better. Both are dry, both are aesthetic, different in their own way, and neither has very strong arms. I would give Dennis the advantage for being much taller and bigger. From the side, Martin is known for his thickness, but Dennis Wolf surprises me, not giving up anything despite having a much bigger frame to fill out. From the back, Martin is more gifted, having the better back, but he would suffer for his narrower frame against a monster like Dennis. Martin has an incredible lower body, but Dennis is decent as well. This is very hard to judge only by these poses, but my gut instinct would go with Dennis Wolf. Aside from his incredible 2007 showing, 2013 and 2014 were his best years. The score becomes 4-3 for 2014. In 3rd place, we have Shawn Rhoden versus Derek Lunsford. Two very different physiques, both very aesthetic in their own way, but Shawn's stature and proportions would give him a considerable advantage. His conditioning is not okay here. He looks soft even against Derek, who's genetically less polished from the front. From the side, Derek gives the illusion of being thicker and more complete through the upper body, but overall it's pretty close. Shawn has an incredible side leg too, but I think he still has a slight film of water, more so than Derek. From the back, it says a blowout for Derek, bigger and more complete back, and a drier lower body. If this was 2018 Shawn when he won the Olympia, he would beat any version of Derek in my opinion. But as they look here, I would go with Derek, mainly for the conditioning. The score becomes 4-4, very tight. We never had more than a 1-point difference until now. Very quickly before we get to the top 2, I've started a YouTube channel in my native language, Romanian. I want to test out this niche on the Romanian public, so if you're from Romania, check out my new channel, Supersetman RO. I uploaded my first video comparing Ronnie and Phil. In 2nd place, we have probably the most interesting battle in this comparison, both of them being considered by many the uncrowned champions of these respective Olympias, but I digress. Their physiques represent the best of the two different eras they come from. Kai is a mass monster that comes from the bubble gut era, while Hadi literally hits a vacuum, something alien-esque back in 2014. However, Kai's midsection is okay here, and his overall muscularity and incredible arms compensate a lot. From the side, Kai has this ugly execution, and that sloppy midsection would be penalized nowadays. However, Hadi gives up too much volume from the side against a guy like Greene. From the back, Kai will beat Hadi for sure, at least in the back double, because the back lat spread would look different between these two. Overall, this is a very tough call. As Hadi looked when he first came out in his individual routine, from where these photos are taken, he was arguably at his best ever. He faded out during the compulsory round. For Kai, the prejudging wasn't the best version, as he had those literal fights with Phil on stage, and all that cortisol made both of them look like shit. But overall, these two shows being two that I know of very well, Kai was actually at one of his best versions at this show. It's true that on the 2024 stage, he could be penalized because of the gut, but overall, a good version of Kai will always beat a good version of Hadi in my opinion. It's still close, but I would go with the Predator here. So the score is 5-4 for 2014 at the moment. The winners of these shows were Phil Heath and Samson Dauda. Now, when we're talking in general, with a Phil Heath Mr. Olympia winning physique, it would be hard for anyone in history to go against that, but we all know that in 2014 we've seen one of the weakest Mr. Olympia versions of Phil Heath, because this year is when his hernia issues first showed up. Samson definitely has the better overall flow. He's also taller and more massive. However, aside from the waist, Phil is more complete, more defined and more conditioned. The side chest is arguably Samson's strongest pose, and we can see that Phil is not giving it up. Samson might be bigger, but Phil's roundness is unmatched. From the back, Phil obviously wins against Samson, and it wouldn't be close. If we were to judge it only by the prejudging, and on today's stage, Samson would probably be awarded by the judges. But in the finals, Phil came in with his waist in check, and since everywhere else he would beat Samson and everyone else on this list, I would still give Phil the win. What do you guys think? The final score is 6-4 for 2014. This was very tight, and a lot of these calls I made could have gone the other way as well, especially the top two that made the actual difference with the score. Would you have it any other way? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, make sure to give this video a like if you want to see 2024 against 2004 next. As always, make sure to also subscribe to stay updated, and see you next time.